The following podcast contains spoilers and words such as done and bother.
Mate, did we watch a thing this week?
Yeah, we did. Billy, my main village man. It's good to be here.
Oh, how you doing, mate? I'll try not to throw off your groove.
Beware the groove.
How you been, mate?
Oh, as good as a semi-mature emperor ripping off peasants. That's how good I've been.
Can life get any better in a week where you get to watch The Emperor's New Groove?
That's it. It's not like you ever need an excuse to get the groove on. But this week, at the request of one of our dear patrons, whose requests history has shown, they've been all over the shop. Sometimes they give us something that they love that we think will be interesting. Sometimes they give us something that they think is terrible and they want to hear us crap on it. Sometimes they give us something that they love, but I think it's something that they think is terrible and I just crap on it because I think it's terrible. This time round, one of our dear patrons has gone just pure joy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, at least anyway, probably one of the most joyful films there is.
I think there is zero debate about that fact. Can you have more fun watching a movie than The Emperor's New Groove? I don't know.
Tommy boy.
Well.
Well, shall we get into it then, mate?
I would love to.
Okay, The Emperor's New Groove is a 2000 American animated buddy comedy film produced by Walt Disney Feature Animation. It's the 40th animated Walt Disney film, and it's directed by Mark Dindal from a screenplay by David Reynolds and a story by Chris Williams and Dindal. And it stars, of course, David Spade, John Goodman, Eartha Kitt, Patrick Warburton, and Wendie Malick. What is it about, mate?
It's about personal growth and llamas, Billy.
Yay, I'm a llama again.
Sometimes personal growth comes from being a llama.
That's true. It's a coming of age buddy story, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's fair.
It got Sting an Oscar nomination
for a dreadful song.
Just the worst.
We're gonna get to it later. We can do it now or we can do it later. I'm not fussed.
Let's do it later. Let's leave it.
Okay.
Let's leave that as a little cherry for the audience to get excited about later on.
Yeah. So weirdly, a very weirdly big film for my friends and I, given that when this film came out, we were too old for it.
Yeah.
Like clearly. We were no longer at the going to watch animated films by Disney age, but we were also not old enough. We also didn't have kids. We weren't watching these films. And through sheer luck, two of my friends went to the movies one day. Didn't check what was on. Went with no plan, just rolled up to the movies. I was like, okay, what's on at a time that works for us? The only thing that worked for them was The Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah.
And so they were like, oh, fuck. Well, we're here. I guess we look like a couple of psychopaths and just go into a kids' movie without kids, expecting to have a terrible time. And came out that day messaging all the rest of us going, we're not having a lend of you. This is quite serious. Everyone needs to watch this film.
Yeah.
And it became this weirdly big film for us. Like the amount of times I've watched this film just absolutely bombed out of my mind, just hammered, because we would go out, either we'd go to a pub or it might be a house party or something. We'd get absolutely fucked up. And at about 2 a.m., someone would be like, hey, let's put Emperor's New Groove on. This chorus of fuck yeah. Maybe my fondest memory of watching this movie, and without question the most important time I watched this film, was me and two of my friends watched it in a bit of a state. We'd just been to the movies and seen 13 Ghosts.
Oh, wow.
And do you remember the ghost called the Jackal from that film?
I remember very little of that film, but my memory tells me that that's probably for the best.
One of the ghosts, yeah, not a good film, but one of the ghosts in that film, there's 12 other ones, spoiler alert. One of them is called the Jackal, and the Jackal fucking terrified me. I was not okay with the jackal, not in any way, shape, or form. And two of my friends and I were driving home from the theater, and I was like, because I was just like freaked out by the jackal. I was like, I'm going to go home and watch The Emperor's New Groove to make myself feel better. And my two friends were like, we're coming with you.
Oh, man.
The amount of times I've like continuously woken up, still half drunk, not quite hungover yet kind of state, just throughout the night, because the DVD menu was just goes on a spin, and it kind of half wakes me up, and I'm like, I can't reach the 40 centimeters to the remote. I'll just try and go back to sleep to that little thing of Kuzco dancing. It's just so many times.
And that's so.
How did you come to this film?
Well, that's so similar to me, I was going to say, because you're a full 5 years older than me, and even I was slightly too old, to be seeing this kind of film when it came out. But exact same situation. I had a group of friends, and I reckon from 97 till 2002, we went to the movies every single weekend. And same kind of thing, just whatever is on, you watch. And sometimes you got absolute gold, sometimes it was crap. We ended up seeing this. I don't remember how it came about. All of us loved it. Like, it is just so much fun. And it's one of the only Disney movies I can think of that's not a musical, which I think... I'm actually a fan of Disney music, but I think music really would have slowed this film down. This is a fast-paced film. This moves at breakneck speed.
It does. The other night when I watched it in preparation for this episode, there was an evening where I was like, I probably don't really have time to squeeze in a movie, and then checked the runtime of The Groove and was like, oh, yeah, I can absolutely squeeze in The Groove. This thing belts along.
Absolutely. I really love this, and I guess we'll get into this later. It had a very, very troubled production, which we'll get into soon. It's amazing what they came out with in the end. Almost a completely different story from the original premise. And for, like when I was studying animation, one of the things they really drill into is like, you're not just doing animation for no reason. Like, an animated film should be animated for a purpose, because it's telling a story that you can't quite tell with live action. This is one of the few Disney movies that I think really hits that brief. Like, there are a lot, and we've seen it lately with all the live action remakes, and yes, CGI has evolved, and I guess, maybe they could do a live action version of this. But this is essentially a slapstick comedy, and it relies so heavily on these absurd, surreal, fantastical elements that just make it so much fun.
Yeah, it's great. It's like it never quite forgets that it's an animated film. Just every so often, it'll throw in something that someone who has never directed animation. So let's take me.
Yeah,
people I've directed in my life on like any kind of video production. I'm talking very low level stuff here. Like, hey, could you just stand over there and make your eye line here? Yeah. Like that kind of thing. Like, it's not going to occur to me all right, look, when we're doing this transition into a scene, the thing's just going to cut to black and white for like 3 seconds and have them silhouetted against black.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not going to occur to me to do that.
Yeah.
And this film is just littered with moments like that of just using the medium incredibly well.
Absolutely. And moments that just would not work in a live action film. The brilliant chase scene in the end where you have it, drawn on the map when Kronk pulls out the wings on the carrier thing and then they get hit by lightning and he falls down. And then one of my favorite lines in the film, how did they get here before us? Well, by all accounts, it doesn't make sense. Like a joke like that would not land in live action because it's so absurd and silly.
And nor does it land in most Disney films.
True, yeah.
This film, like you look at a Disney catalogue of films and this film is weird.
It's absolutely bizarre. Can we start, I think, before we get into like the history and stuff, can we start with the cast? Now, this is not the first Spade film we've watched because famously I have made you watch Tommy Boy. And if my day comes back around, I'll damn well get you to watch Joe Dirt, my friend. I'm trying...
The people's mullet.
I'm trying to recall your thoughts on the Spade, who I love David Spade. I think that he is a brilliant comedic actor. I've read his autobiography. I think he's just a very funny person in general. From memory, you don't like David Spade. Is that correct?
Oh, I thought he was the best thing about Tommy Boy.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Okay, and granted, that's not saying a lot. But no, I'm kind of here for David Spade's dry, sarcastic thing. It works for me.
Did you ever watch Just Shoot Me?
Back when it was on, we used to watch that pretty regularly.
Yeah, I was a religious viewer, and I've actually rewatched the show several times. So it's funny, the connection with Wendie Malick in this film as well, because when I hear her voice, all I think is Nina Van Horn. But I think that this pairing of Spade and Goodman, I think for me, it tops Alan and Hanks in Toy Story. I think this has to be some of the best buddy casting I can think of. All right, not that we want this to happen. If this film was being remade today, live action or not, how do you cast this? There's no way to top that original cast.
No. I suppose you probably get, what's the Spider-Man kid? Tom Holland? Is he Kuzco?
Yeah, he would be. Yeah, that's absolutely right. You know who'd be Pacha? The Rock.
Yeah, he would be.
He would. With Dave Bautista as Kronk.
Dave Bautista. Jesse Plemons as Kronk.
Oh, I mean, the Plemons could do anything, couldn't he? I mean, it'd be a completely different character to Warburton, but I'd pay to see it.
Just like only half channeling his character from Game Night, but just that, kind of vacant-eyed thing.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see the Plemons.
I don't know who else you get to be Yzma.
No.
Ooh. I mean, I would have... that's sad. I would have said Jessica Walters.
Yeah, well, yeah, that would have been spot on. Glenn Close? Yeah.
Just kind of channel a bit of Cruella gear.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
But yeah, it wouldn't top the original. It is one of the all-time great voice casts. And it's a pretty small cast, really. I mean, you got Tom Jones whooping around there a bit.
Mate, fun fact, because you know that originally this was a musical. It was an epic musical with all the songs written by Sting, a la what Elton John did for The Lion King. And in the end, when they shifted gear, they dropped all of his songs and just said, just write an opening song and an outro song. And they wanted him to perform that song at the start. And he said, no.
That would have sucked.
He said, I'm too old. You need someone young and hip. So they got Tom Jones, who's 11 years older than him. And one of my favorite things that I actually never, ever noticed before this viewing, that entire opening dance number, just about everybody is out of time really badly. All of the dancers are out of time with each other. Even when they're tapping and you can hear it, there's a bunch of taps going on at once. And it's that small attention to detail that I really love, because it's these people aren't trained dancers. They're his guards that he's just making do this dance number for him. And I actually really love that touch.
That really speaks to the production of this film, which is just unlike other Disney films, where this film was basically shelved, and it was okay, look, I guess guys make the film. We don't care. Just go down to the basement and make this film.
Yeah.
And it's stuff like that it does feel like a bunch of adults amusing themselves.
Yes.
This movie.
Yeah.
And sure, kids are going to like it because it's an animated film and kids are going to like it. And there's a talking llama and stuff. That's fun. But so much of the film is just feels like these people who were kept looking over their shoulder to see if the mouse was looking, and the mouse wasn't looking.
Yeah.
And it was sweet, we can just do this.
It's a real shame that this movie didn't perform as well as it did, because you can clearly see the link between this and more modern animated films. Like, you know, you think of Lord and Miller, and if this film had performed better, we might not have had that, 20-year gap before that style of film came back again. Like, because it took a long time after this. You think, so this was supposed to be a big epic musical like Disney were doing at the time, and then it was after both Pocahontas and Hunchback of Notre Dame were massive flops that they said, no, we can't do this again. This is just not going to work. People just don't want this. And so originally they brought in Dindal as like an assistant director to just kind of try and make it a bit funnier, but him and Roger Allers, who had directed The Lion King and was set to direct this, had such disagreements about the tone that Allers just stepped out. But this could have been such a strange film if they had gone with that weird combination of this style of comedy with an epic musical.
From so early on in this film, it's just like if you go into this blind, you're just like, okay, I'm just going to watch the new Disney animated film, and you don't know what this film is. Then from so early on, the very first shot with the quivering lip of the llama in this like comically over the top kind of way, it just isn't quite normal Disney.
Yes.
And then you've got Kuzco, like as that opening number is starting, he like points to and references theme song guy. And it's like,
yeah,
this isn't quite normal.
Yeah.
And I think it does speak like with that line with theme song guy, it kind of point you towards this kind of self-awareness that the movie has about the fact that it is an animated film.
Yes.
And then like you said, yes, now we do get more of that. And yeah, as you said, would have sped up that process of getting more self-aware animation if this thing hadn't, and because they didn't know how to mark, like Disney didn't know what to do with this thing.
No, how do you advertise this film?
Yeah, we're like, we don't know how to market it. We don't know what this thing is.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, because it's not really for little kids, because there is so much humor in it that they just don't get. So when we rewatched it this time, because my eldest is now nearly 7, and my youngest is nearly 3, and she's too young. Like she was just wanting to fucking throw popcorn around and shit. But we were hoping my eldest might get a real kick out of it. She didn't really enjoy this as much as I was hoping. I guess so much of the humor is well above her level. Like there's the odd thing she laughs at that's just, like silly.
Because even just in your usual dialogue with things like, referencing, because, they are the government, referencing things like change of address forms or Yzma saying, or to save on postage.
Yes.
It's like, what is this stuff doing here? For a 5-year-old, what does that mean?
Yeah, that's right. And, like every Disney film has those moments that are, jokes for the adults. But this definitely has more than your ordinary film.
So this film comes out before or after Joe Dirt? They're pretty close, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, that was the Spade era. I mean, he was, because Just Shoot Me was on at the time this came out. From memory, that ran from, I want to say, 97 to 03. And he was actually still the main voice cast in the original version of what this film was going to be. Him and Eartha Kitt were the only two who had remained on. The peasant was supposed to be voiced by Owen Wilson.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know, right? So this must have been just before Joe Dirt, I want to say. I feel like Joe Dirt was more 2001, 2002.
Okay, this was 2000, Joe Dirt was 2001. That kind of bums me out because I was hoping that it was a nod to Joe Dirt, the fact that the llama, when he is a llama, he basically has a mullet. And it would have been fantastic if that was actually just winking at Joe Dirt.
Or maybe Joe Dirt is winking at this film.
Another cool thing, just getting back to the animation on this film, which is, I think, sneakily very good. Because it's like we are into the digital age of animation at this point, although sure in terms of quality, and it's nowhere near where it is now. How many years after Toy Story are we? 6 years at this point? Like it's around.
Yeah.
This film surface level looks very basic by comparison. They don't do a lot in terms of trying to kind of render people's faces to make them look 3D or anything. It's very 2D. Yeah. And yet, in so many scenes, there is this kind of really cool drop-off in the lighting of a scene from what's happening with the characters to the background, and not only the brightness of the image, how they change that up within the frame, but then changing the color as well of a background. And it's like there's overt times where it's happening in rainforests and that kind of thing. But even in interiors, there's a hell of a lot of care given.
Yeah.
To the entire frame.
And it was a quick animation process, really, because while the film had been in production since 1994, most of that was the original, and I believe they had animated like 15% or something of that, but it was completely different. The lead designer for Yzma left the production when they changed it because he was like, well, my designs just don't match this new character. So actual animation on this film, I believe, didn't start until like midway into 99. Which you're talking like, a 12 to 18 month turnaround. Like that is fairly quick.
We haven't talked a lot about plot with this film because I'm assuming everyone's watched it. If you haven't, I don't know what to say to you. What's wrong with you?
If you haven't seen this, turn us off and go watch The Groove.
Yeah, twice. What do you think was at the point where Kuzco gets across the bridge, leaves John Goodman hanging?
Yeah.
Possibly gonna die, and she's like, sweet, I'm going back to the city, my troubles are behind me.
Yeah.
What's his plan at that point? He's just gonna turn up to the city gates as a llama and say I'm the emperor who you think is dead.
Well, from memory,
he will get speared.
That is before he knows it was Yzma, isn't it? So I think his plan is to go find Yzma because he knows that she does magic. So his plan is to go and get her to fix him.
Yeah, because it's then after the restaurant scene that they kind of make a break for it, isn't it?
Yes, and it's after the restaurant scene that they know that, yeah.
His plan is still to turn up to the city as a llama, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, his plan is to be a llama.
It's not a great plan, is it? It's not too long after that kind of if I was going to pick nits at the film, I think its greatest storytelling fault for me is probably after the big gloom of the film. We get back to where the film starts, where he's a llama sitting in the rain, no friends, yada yada yada, and then with zero growth required, like he just bumps into Pacha again, and Pacha's like, yeah, okay, it's fine, let's go. It's like, really? Was that the lesson? Just hope that a village is nice to you?
Yeah, well, that's really the thing of it, isn't it? Just that Pacho's a nice dude.
That's it. There's another joke in there that I don't know if this is the filmmakers putting in a joke for adults or whether we were just filthy young men when we saw it and took it. We were like, well, that can only be about one thing. When Kuzco gets punched by the old dude that he's forgiven, the guy that threw off his groove.
Yeah.
And the old dude like punches him in the arm, and Kuzco's like, hey, watch it, I got to use that later.
That's just you, mate.
Okay.
That is not a masturbation joke.
Okay. We know he's single.
I can't believe you thought Kuzco was just talking about going to have a cheeky larrup.
We all thought that.
Nobody thought that.
That was one of the points where my entire group of friends would just kill ourselves laughing because we thought definite masturbation joke.
I mean, now that you've said it, what is he using his arm for later? He mostly just sits in his throne and other people do stuff for him, so...
He's not cooking.
Well, yeah. You know what? You've turned me around.
Definitely.
I do wonder how much of the film might have just been improvised. Like with this talent, these are some very, very funny people. And Spade and Warburton, to me, it feels like they must have just been let loose.
Because that seems like it's very difficult to do in this format, because you're in a voice recorder by yourself. You don't have someone to bounce off.
But I mean, for a lot of the movie, as you say, it's a very small cast. Kronk has some dialogue with Yzma, but a lot of time he's talking to himself. You know, like you think about the scene where he's doing his own theme music and stuff.
Oh my God.
And same with Spade. A lot of his dialogue is to himself in this film.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like it would shock if things like, lines going down the waterfall, just yelling out "Booyah."
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if that's in the script or if Spade was just like, this is what Kuzco would do. I genuinely think that. In fact, I'm certain of it. Well, okay, I'm 97% sure that this film is the start of my friends and I saying of us using "Booyah."
Yeah,
it's this movie.
I mean, timing that would make sense. Certainly, no one was saying "Booyah"
By all
before
accounts,
2000.
Ask me what the worst bit of the film is.
What do you reckon the worst bit?
It's the kids.
So we're not even dealing with child actors, and you still can't stand children in a film.
Look, they're not absolutely terrible. They're not, but they are the worst thing about the film. I don't care about your wobbly tooth. Get out of here.
Well, okay, now I'm trying to think. I guess most Disney films... No, that's not true at all. Most Disney films have no children in them. Little Mermaid, no kids. Beauty and the Beast,
I mean, she's kind of a kid.
I guess you got a teacup. Well, I mean, she's a kid that's old enough to apparently do it with a prince. So
that's true.
So, did you know that in the original cut of this film, Kuzco's name is Manco? And when they did a rehaul on it, they changed that because they discovered that Manco is Japanese for
Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
So they were like, well, best be changing that.
Interesting.
I was actually just going to bring up a moment from this film that terrified me beyond all reason. Bats in the mouth. Not a good thing. I didn't notice
that until I reckon I don't know. It might have been like the fifth time I watched this film that I was like, oh, hang on.
And
that just happened.
Is what's happening that the bats fly into his mouth with such force that they fly him back up the cliff?
I don't think it's wise to try and figure out the physics of exactly how they get up the cliff at that point. It doesn't really track.
But it's bats in the mouth.
But bats in the mouth.
It's literally bats in the mouth.
Yeah, I think that's how this pandemic started.
Yeah, very present for 2021. Shall we talk Sting?
Worst part of the film is not the kids, actually, upon reflection. It's when this upbeat, lively, joyous film ends and this miserable fucking Sting song begins.
Yeah, I don't believe you and I have ever discussed Sting. Are you a Sting fan, my friend?
I'm neutral.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say I like The Police more than I like Sting, if I can say such a thing.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Not really interested in Sting with a liar.
Yeah, I'm not an Elton John fan either, and I'm also not a great Phil Collins fan. So Disney already did me wrong with The Lion King and Tarzan. If you're going to go Collins, do the right thing and get Peter Gabriel. Don't get his fucking knockoff.
You don't like Elton John?
Not a huge fan. I mean, he's got a couple of good ones. Like, everyone loves Tiny Dancer. But, I mean, really, I'm not going to rush out and buy the best of Elton John.
A lot of bangers there.
Yeah, just not for me. Not a Sting fan, though. This would have been such a miserable film helmed by Sting.
Oh, Jesus. That final... I don't know if I could think of a song that just... It's like it goes to change gear from the end of the film into the credits and the accompanying song, and it's just like someone learning to drive who just misses the gear and you just get that of the gearbox.
Yeah. Yep.
It's just horrible. Just what happens? I was here having the time of my life.
Yeah.
And now Sting's here doing I don't know what, but apparently it results in an Oscar nomination?
Yeah.
What's happening?
And he made them change the ending to the film. You know how at the end Kuzco builds his little shack on the hill?
Yeah. Boom, baby.
Yeah. So he actually had built Kuzcotopia. Sting sent the production company a letter saying, I'm quitting if you do this. He's not destroying a rainforest at the end of the film to build this thing. That goes against everything I stand for. They should have just let him quit.
But we know that's not it's a pretty bare hill, isn't it? Doesn't he just kind of plonk it on? There's no trees there. Maybe
that's part of what they changed.
I mean, I'm pro rainforest.
Well, I mean, aren't we all?
No, there's plenty of people who'd rather grow coffee.
Well, yeah, that's true. I don't even drink coffee. I mean, I do like a coffee-based stout, though. And just last night, I used a really nice coffee rub on a brisket, which was fucking delightful, I might say.
But you wouldn't say that your brisket is the value of a rainforest and
it's a really good
the homes
brisket.
of a lot of animals and oxygen. You know, we need that.
We do. It was a really good brisket, though, mate. It was very moist, very juicy.
Yeah, but without the oxygen,
cooked it for 11 hours.
The cows can't live for you to kill.
Oh, that's true. Do you know about the documentary, though? One of the agreements that Sting made when he signed on to do the film was that his wife, who was a documentarian, be allowed to document the process. So
of him writing his worst song?
No, of the film, of the production of the film. So, of course, the majority of that is about... So it ended up being this film about, corporate meddling and changing this project from what it was to what it is.
I've heard.
It's called The Sweatbox, and it's apparently amazing. It's screened at some festivals, and I think there are places you can find copies, but Disney own the rights and they don't want it released, so it's very, very hard to find.
Apparently it is brilliant.
Yes. If we
like
can...
you said, Disney did not want this thing to see the light of day.
We need to find a copy of it, though. I will search till my dying day.
Yeah, so keen. Can I play a little game of best line?
Yeah, okay. There's lots of good lines.
There's so many. I've got a short list here, but happy if your favourite is not here. Wouldn't shock because there's a lot. Okay. Why do we even have that lever? I mean, fucking hell.
That is a great line.
So good. Shoulder Angel talking about Shoulder Demon. No, he's got a point.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that actually is that is pretty cool.
Two in quick succession that are just Jesus Christ, I don't know how many times I've said both these lines. Llama face.
Yes.
And Demon Llama.
Demon, yeah.
Demon Llama.
I mean, my favourite is when he slaps himself, bad llama.
The cry of Booyah, as I said.
Yes.
That's been huge for me over the years. There's one that I say all the time, assuming everyone will get, because I assume everyone's obsessed with this film. Turns out they're not, and they're like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Whenever anyone's looking around or something, I invariably say, I don't know, somebody's throwing stuff. And just crickets.
Those things are the worst, aren't they? It's just that, like, I'm a little bit slimmer now, but back when I was a very heavy gentleman, I used to love putting on people's jackets and singing Fat Guy in a Little Coat. And, of course, Tommy Boy is not everyone's cup of tea. A lot of people haven't seen it, shockingly.
Because, I could largely just communicate with Emperor's New Groove GIFs.
Oh, you do quite regularly.
I do a lot. You know this. Yeah.
You seem to have a staple. I mean, I've been meaning to ask you this. Are there some that you just have saved?
Yes.
I get that from you so often. I'm like, he must have that saved in a pretty close folder.
I do.
Yeah.
Obviously, in a contest of best line, I mean, they're all the winner. This is arguably the greatest script in history.
Well, here's what I was going to ask. I'm assuming that for you, this sits as easily your number one Disney film.
It is.
Like, you're not really a Disney guy. What else is on the apex for you? What else is on the Mount Rushmore of Disney films?
I mean, growing up, Aladdin and Lion King were of course, they were huge for me. They were absolute, I was a kid. Of course, I fucking loved those films.
Yeah. See, I'm not as big on those. Like the kind of not to sound, like a non-conformist. I'm not Holden Caulfield here, but yeah, most of the big ones don't do it for me. For me, apart from this, did you ever see a Goofy movie?
No.
Dude, a Goofy movie rocks, man. You should check it out. It's a buddy comedy very similar to this. Yeah, Goofy movie rocks. Hercules, big Hercules fan.
I have not seen Hercules.
Mate, you got to get on it. Hercules is good
because
stuff.
like The Emperor's New Groove, it was just like I was past watching Disney films.
Well, that's true. Hercules would have been the one right before this.
Yeah, and it was just sheer fluke that this one fell into my life.
Yeah.
Thank God.
So, I mean, we've certainly sung this film's praises. I'm very, very curious to see where you're going here, because you can be picky on scores. But the way you've spoken, I'm expecting like an 8. How are you scoring this?
It's better than an 8. Emperor's New Groove, 9 out of 10. It is...
Wow.
Fuck, it's fucking brilliant.
I'm going to have to look through the history. I think that this you would have, we're like 180 episodes in or something. You would be less than 10 nines given on this show.
Yeah, there's been like, Alien, LA Confidential. Emperor's New Groove is that good.
So this would be like in your top 5% of movies we've done on the show.
Absolutely it would.
Wow. I'm a 7 on this. I love this movie. Love it. But
not enough.
Well, certainly not that much. All right. Good stuff. What are we getting to next week, mate?
Well, this was meant to be a musical and wasn't, so in that spirit, should we get to a musical?
Yeah, I guess we can do that. We can get our culture on.
We can go pretend that we were into Lin-Manuel Miranda before he was huge.
Yeah, In the Heights. I'm curious about this. I have a strange relationship with Lin-Manuel. I, as you know, love Hamilton. I could sing the entire thing from start to end right now. I know every single word. But I haven't liked a lot of other stuff he's done. You know what I rewatched the other day, and you're going to be a little bit like, what in the fuck? Oklahoma? I just had this urge to watch Oklahoma.
I did actually see that pop up on Letterboxd. I was like, that's an interesting move.
It's one of the few musicals that I actually enjoy. There's not many, but there's a few. And Oklahoma...
See, here's my thing. I feel like every time you watch a musical, you say, I'm not normally into musicals, but this one's really good. And like that's what you say about every musical.
I don't think that's true. I reckon...
Is it a bit true?
No.
Okay.
Maybe. Off the top of my head, I reckon there's like 5 that I really, truly enjoy. And yeah, Oklahoma is one of those ones for me that works much better as a film. So yeah, curious to see In the Heights. I've never heard a single song from it before. So in the meantime, if you want to get in touch with us, you can do that at wewatchedathing.com or wewatchedathing@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all under the handle @wewatchedathing. If you want to help support the show, you can pick something for us to watch. You can do that at patreon.com/wewatchedathing, and we'll catch you next week.
I don't know. Some Australian stuff.